Reusing and recycling clothes and textiles was the norm from the beginning of human civilization until it was overtaken by fast fashion in the 1970s. Clothing began to be mass-produced, making fashion trends more accessible and rapidly available for the average consumer to buy from the high street. This made the garments low cost to produce for the retail giants, at the expense of workers in developing countries making them. At the brink of an environmental catastrophe and the second recession of the 21st century, fast fashion has become even easier to access through the internet. However, the implications of shopping this way are harder to ignore than ever. An increasing number of Gen Z and millennials are making more sustainable choices and are swapping Shein for secondhand. The pre-loved bug is spreading societally, with even Love Island collaborating with eBay to dress their contestants. But why is this the case? Are consumers crunching numbers to cope with the cost of living crisis? Are people petrified that synthetic textile production is accelerating climate change? Do shoppers seek out staple subculture pieces that none of their peers are wearing? Or do the public just really love a bargain? I'm at Blockhairn Market to get a feel for how second-hand shopping used to play out back in the day. During the week, this space is a bustling wholesale market, supplying local grocers and hospitality businesses with fresh produce. On a Sunday morning, however, the place opens to vendors and the public looking to make some fast cash. If you are hoping to punch your old household goods, clothes, or just about anything else you can think of, a pitch only sets you back £20. I came here a lot as a child, and although the bustle and the smell remains the same as in my memory, the garments and bric-a-brac to rummage through is dwindling. It's not just Blockhairn though. The same scene is playing out all over the country. Blockhairn Market is one of only 2 car boot sales left in the city of Glasgow. Is the second-hand shopping boom helping to revitalise places like this, or putting the final nail in its coffin? The Barras, which has been running since the 1700s, has redeveloped into a more palatable experience for the modern consumer. Traditional bric-a-brac stalls share their space with artist studios and trendy bars. Similar flea markets of Glasgow's past have not been as lucky. Paddy's Market, a historic one-stop shop for second-hand goods, was closed by the council in 2009 after 2 centuries of business. Photographer and filmmaker Chris Leslie recounts his time documenting the alleyway and the seller's struggles with the council and the press in the lead-up to its closure.
Once you get through those 2 entrance points, there was loads of traders, there was a load of cracking stuff to be found, there was music shops, there was, all sorts of kind of vintage stuff going on. But of course there was trading of illegal goods, but there's trading of illegal goods everywhere. And the Evening Times was really fucking relentless on its kind of attacks on the market, really in the hand with the council in terms of getting that message across to the public. But it's had its day, it's gone, it's no longer, it's not needed, it's not part of Glasgow, blah, blah, blah. Network Rail own the arches, so they were leased by the traders from Network Rail. Now, in the immediate years after the closure, Glasgow City Council continued paying Network Rail the rent for that space for a long time. I don't even know if it's still going on, because it was just so keen to keep it closed, and just they would rather pay that money and keep it closed and fenced off. But obviously the promises of what was going to replace it and all that never materialised at all.
With a significant drop in the number of market spaces to comb through pre-loved goods in the 21st century, the High Street charity shop has solidified itself as the place to go for unique and cost-friendly finds. But the sector has not escaped unscathed from the cost of living crisis. I spoke to Jonathan Mayo, Head of Public Affairs for the Charity Retail Association, an overseeing body that represents charity retailers in the UK. I asked Jonathan if there are any changes in the sector that the CRA have picked up on, and why he thinks so many young people are getting into charity shopping.
The biggest kind of growth area really is in terms of setting up charity shop superstores, and actually one of those shops potentially that could contribute the same sales as 8 traditional smaller charity shops. And I think social media has had a really beneficial impact as well, and there's now a large number of online influencers who are doing charity shop hauls and showcasing sector, and I think that's really helped as well. I think another factor to consider is in terms of the high street, lots of the old-fashioned retailers have closed down. So BHS, CNA, many other clothing stores have just left the high street entirely. A lot of them have moved, either gone bankrupt or moved entirely online. So if you actually want to go shopping for clothing in a physical store, in many areas, actually, the charity shops are the big fashion retailers.
Beyond in person, the most visible changes in how Gen Z and millennials are shopping can be found on the internet. The online sphere is no longer just a theatre for throwaway fashion giants to churn out micro-trends to a captive audience. Secondhand marketplaces like Vinted and Depop are dominating the consumer market across Europe. Vinted has overtaken Amazon in France in sales volume this year, making it the leading clothing retailer in the nation. Is this possible for the UK? With a reported 16 million users of the platform in the United Kingdom, this means that nearly 1 in 4 people nationwide have a Vinted account. In its most recent impact report, published in late 2023, Vinted found that 53% of their British consumers are forking out less money on fashion because of the online marketplace. In doing this, buyers in the UK are saving an average of £77 a month. Millennials were more likely to invest the money made from selling on Vinted back into the items on the e-commerce site, whilst Gen Zs typically withdrew their savings into their bank accounts. This data being financially driven makes sense, as until recently, ad campaigns on British television and apps like YouTube and TikTok have focused more on decluttering, buying and selling your own clothes on Vinted. Vinted's newest adverts have moved towards self-expression through sustainability, so consumer priorities when shopping on the platform may pivot in this direction in the future. Buying clothes second-hand can be good for the environment in more ways than one. An increasing amount of fast fashion is finding its way onto charity shop rails. The clothes have questionable quality at best and are unethically produced at worst, but fast fashion's infiltration of second-hand shopping is helping clothes stay out of landfills and putting them back into wardrobes. Art student Alexandria shared with me how she gives these pieces a second lease of life.
I have always shopped kind of secondhand since I was younger because I found that I could get more for my money, and I'm a big believer in that what's for you will be there, and that's really important to me, be able to obtain really nice pieces at like reasonable price. I like finding a lot of stuff from like Topshop. It's still obviously is kind of like fast fashion, but I've owned pieces from Topshop from when I was like really, really young. So I really like pieces from like certain shops that kind of aren't in fashion anymore, but are still like my fashion, because I feel like it's so hard to keep up with like the fashion trends. Like no one even cares. Do you know what I mean? Finding like your authentic style and what's true to you is so much easier when you're not just kind of like shopping in high street shops, when it's all just like trend based. This was secondhand vintage. It's my monkey cardigan, so it's got some really nice kind of like detailing. I do love it a lot. And then on the back, and I wear this for special occasions. This was like £40, and I think it retails for like a couple hundred. I've been lucky enough to have some opportunities in the kind of modelling world, and I find bringing sustainability and shopping secondhand into that very interesting, because a lot of the pieces that we kind of shoot with are made and not in like the way that you would conventionally think. It's like on the spot, like kind of taping things to you, just finding things in like charity shops, like big bits of like tulle and feathers and just like different pieces and then turning them into something that's like avant-garde and works for like the camera. And it's really kind of changed my eye to like revisit my existing wardrobe of things that like I've always been really excited by, and now I'm seeing them in a new light with kind of new pieces, and it keeps the wardrobe alive.
As well as supplying the next generation with the tools for self-expression, charity shops can also be a lifeline for communities far away from the bustle of city shopping districts. Alec, who works in a charity shop in the north of Scotland, gave me an insight into what her role entails and what the retailer does for her town.
We don't have any clothing stores. We don't have any. We are the clothing stores. So between us, the Highland Hospice and New Start, that's pretty much it for clothes. If you're looking for anything, you have to go to Inverness. That's why we get a lot of people ordering online. So what ends up happening is we get a lot of donations in the charity shop of brand new clothes because they can't return it. I have noticed it's always, you have your regulars, and then you've got people who are just like browsing on the off chance. You have people who are in the shop every day just having a browse. We sell a lot of clothes. We have people in, even what I've noticed is even like a lot of young people are coming in, because especially when I was younger, it was very much just like charity shop, whereas now it's very much, ooh, let's have a browse in the charity shop. And they do, and they buy lots, so I'm not complaining. Obviously still very top heavy in terms of volunteering, but we're getting like a good few more volunteers that are young people as well. People just come in to talk to you. Like, I swear half of my job is just speaking to people. That's it. They come in to talk to me and then they leave. Sometimes they buy stuff, which is great, but it's mostly just, it's the community thing where they come in to talk to you and then they leave. So you get a lot of, that's what your volunteers are doing, essentially.
For some, the biggest appeal for pre-owned fashion is the accessibility to clothes that align with the subcultures they're a part of. Fashion designer Rihanna gathers inspiration from her musical upbringing, her interest in cultural movements, and their connections to sustainability.
I'm Rihanna, I'm a fashion textiles graduate and I run a small business called Golf Baby Designs. I specialise in mixed media textiles using secondhand clothes from charity shops or just clothes that people don't want. I got into fashion and textiles because it felt like the best way for me to express myself creatively. I'm a really big fan of just like music in general, so a lot of my projects are based on music, feminism and like punk. A lot of the stuff I make is actually created for stage. I was lucky enough to go on tour with Boy George and Culture Club. I was a wardrobe assistant. That led me to being able to style some of the musicians on stage, which was really cool. I like customised a blazer for one of the backing singers, which was obviously amazing for me to start out. And recently I've designed for Beth McCarthy a look for her to wear at her first set at Glastonbury. So it's the best way for me to work affordably and just in general creatively. I think it's really cool to be able to like add things to garments and make them look completely different. And I use a lot of buttons, safety pins, honestly anything that I can get my hands on I'll use. I made like a full garment out of can tabs, which was a nightmare, but it's really cool in the end, and it's like something that would just normally go in the bin, but it's now like something that you can wear. What I see a lot is like big brands greenwashing all the time. They'll say that their clothes are organic and then they'll screen print over it with dyes that are dangerous to the environment, so it's not necessarily actually sustainable. I think that a lot of young people are turning towards sustainability in the sense of charity shops and stuff. So it's like if you go to a charity shop, then you know that you're buying secondhand clothing and that you're actually doing something to make things more sustainable. And also it's became a bit of a trend, like it's an aesthetic to buy charity shop clothes now, which is obviously really great that something can be like aesthetically trendy but also sustainable for the environment.
I'm travelling to the northeast of the country to chat to Sophie, who runs Mansell & Studios, about sustainable fashion choices beyond the second-hand sphere. Inspired by her southern French heritage and the area's relationship with dyeing and recycling materials, Sophie has even written a book about natural dyeing processes to help educate the upcoming generation of textile designers.
I am a textile graduate. I just graduated in summer. I'm a responsible textile designer, and for my graduate collection I did my project on nourriture, which translates to nourishment or food in English from French. It's very important to me to use natural materials so that once it's done its purpose, you should be able to give it back to the land and it will just disintegrate back to where it came from. And it's a whole life cycle, basically. So like all of my family are, wine makers, olive oil makers, lavender oil makers. Everything is sustainable, no waste. It's so important to know where you come from and the processes that happen. These women who spend so long going through these really old school processes and ways of making to create something absolutely wonderful. And it takes a lot of time, but I feel like the time is worth it. I'm a toucher because everything you do when you go to France in the produce market is you touch, you smell, you see the vibrant colours, and we're just trying to kind of do a celebration of abundance of like fruit from the land. But if you look at the history and like what we've done and how far we've come, it's pretty amazing. And then unfortunately the Industrial Revolution, that things really started to change, because at the beginning it took a long time to make this, a metre worth of yarn or twine. Through trade we decided to kind of go a lot quicker and we needed to make things faster, so it wasn't time efficient anymore. So then we started, processing very fast and forgetting what we use, and also not understanding the damage that we do. On my journey of it, it was very difficult to find these resources because people weren't sharing. I've tried really hard to compile it all together and to show kind of what good it can do. The circular fashion issue, like how do we kind of stop that? How do we reuse? Like when we understand our materials and how to use them, that's the best thing. And share that knowledge, then it's just going to help everybody.
But are Gen Zs and millennials actually rethinking how they acquire their clothes? We asked over 100 young adults about their secondhand shopping habits, and the results were staggering. 92% of people said that they buy clothes from charity shops, and over 4/5 of the respondents shop on Vinted. 91% of interviewees said that affordability was a factor in buying pre-loved pieces, with the quality of clothes available a close second at 64%. Just over half of respondents have sustainability and uniqueness of items available in mind whilst shopping. Surprisingly, funding charities was the aspect people cared about the least, with 1 in 4 respondents saying they think about it when buying second-hand. As for sustainability, only around 1 in 10 say they throw clothes out when decluttering their wardrobe. In comparison, over 3/4 of people would instead sell them online or donate them to a charity shop. It's not just online marketplaces and charity retailers that people are sourcing their second-hand garments from, with many attending vintage shops and kilo markets for their fix. There is still a long way to go though, as 30% of responders do not shop anywhere else. People are talking more openly about purchasing previously owned outfits, as 82% of those who took the survey said that if someone complimented an item of their clothing, they would definitely tell them where they bought it.